Hi, welcome to Unit 2, the periodic table. In this unit, you'll learn about average atomic mass, groups and periods, and the difference between metals and nonmetals. This is the periodic table of elements, and it's a table of all of the known elements in the world. 2.1 Atomic mass. The average atomic mass of an element is the weighted average of all isotopes of that element, and there are different percentages of isotopes that exist in nature. If you look on the periodic table, the average atomic mass is usually listed at the bottom of the square. So in this example, the average atomic mass of carbon is 12.0107. And so you can calculate this using this formula down here, with the mass of the first isotope times its abundance plus the mass of the second isotope times its abundance, and so on, divided by 100. And so this is an example of that, where you have iron with these isotopes and the relative abundance. So iron 54, according to this table, is 5.95% of all of the iron in the world. Iron 56 is 91.88%, and iron 57 is the remaining 2.17%. So using the formula, this will be 54, the number or the mass of the first isotope, times 5.95 plus 56 times 91.88 plus 57 times 2.17 divided by 100, which gives you 55.9 as the average atomic mass. So you can use the formula to work backward too, by using it to find the relative abundance of a certain isotope. And so I'd encourage you to pause the video and try to find out using this information here. Um, what's the relative abundance of chromium 52? All right, so you should have gotten 83.8%. And so how you would solve this is you'd use the formula and set the isotope, the relative abundance of the isotope of chromium 52 to a variable like x, and then you'd use the equation to solve for x to get something close to 83.8%. 2.2 Groups. The columns of the periodic table are called groups, and elements of the same group share similar properties. They also have special names. For example, group 1, the first red column, is called the alkali metals. Group 2 is called the alkaline earth metals. These blue ones, groups 3 to 12, are called the transition metals. And then to the right, group 17 is called the halogens, and group 18 is called the noble gases. Atoms of the same group have the same number of valence electrons. And a valence electron is basically the electron that's in the outermost electron shell of an atom. So in this example, this atom has one valence electron, but it can have multiple. 2.3 Periods. The rows of the periodic table are called periods, and elements of the same period have the same number of electron shells. Each circle around the center of an atom represents an electron shell or energy level. And so as you can see in this example, this atom has 3 electron shells. And so the period number is the energy level or the number of electron shells of an element in that period. So how many electron shells do these elements have? You'll need to use the periodic table for this. So once again, feel free to pause the video and try this out for yourself. So you should have gotten 1 for hydrogen, 4 for iron, and 6 for cesium. So if you look at the periodic table, hydrogen is in the first row at the top. Iron is in the 4th row, and cesium is in the 6th row. 2.4 Metals and nonmetals. Metals and nonmetals have different properties that set them apart. For example, metals tend to lose valence electrons, more on this later, but they're also shiny, good conductors, which is why metals like copper are used in electrical wiring. And they're malleable and ductile, which means they're easy to mold and bend. And they're usually solids at room temperature, except for mercury. Some common metals are like iron, gold, copper. And so nonmetals tend to gain valence electrons, and they're often dull, poor conductors, brittle as solids, and usually gases at room temperature. So things like oxygen. And metalloids are special elements that have properties of both metals and nonmetals. So to recap, the average atomic mass is the average mass of all isotopes, accounting for their relative abundances. Groups are the columns on a periodic table, and elements of the same group share the same number of valence electrons. Periods are the rows on the periodic table, and elements of the same period have the same number of electron shells. And finally, metals and nonmetals have certain differences, like their conductivity, malleability, and their state of matter at room temperature. That's all for this unit. Thanks for watching.